So, do y'all remember back on the campaign trail when Donald Trump said, just vote for me this time and you'll never have to vote again? We'll fix it to where you will never have to vote again. And that didn't raise a red flag to MAGA. They just cheered it on. I guess you won't have to vote again if you've got the richest dude in the world going around and paying voters. Um, they're just being more and more bold and brazen about it, and their crowd is loving it because the crowd thinks, wow, we're owning the libs. But, folks, there is absolutely no world in which this is normal. And this tweet that Elon put out, there's no way you could spin this to say that he wasn't trying to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. I'm going to pull up this tweet here that he left. Now, he's deleted it since he put this up because he definitely stepped in it when he put this up. But look right here, folks, how bold and brazen he is with this. He says, on Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin. Entrance is limited to those who have voted in the Supreme Court election. I will also personally hand over 2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking the time to vote. This is super important. Now, the most disturbing part about this is watching people sit back and try to split hairs and try to break down what he said and say, well, now, he really didn't say he was going to buy votes. He just said he was going to give away $2 million to show his appreciation. What the hell else could it mean? This is something that I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. This is not something that anyone should be for. The Wisconsin Attorney General decided to sue, but now a court is saying that they're not going to let that happen. Take a look at this, and yes, this is a real headline. In 2025, I'm going to read here from the Associated Press. Wisconsin Appeals Court won't stop Musk's $1 million payments to voters after Attorney General sues. So getting into the story here, a Wisconsin appellate court has denied the state Democratic Attorney General's request to stop billionaire Elon Musk from handing over 1 million checks to 2 voters at a rally planned for Sunday, just 2 days before a closely contested Supreme Court election. The denial Saturday by the Wisconsin Court of Appeals is the latest twist in Musk's involvement in the race, which has set a record for spending in a judicial election and has become a litmus test for the opening months of Donald Trump's presidency. Trump and Musk are backing Judge Brad Schimmel, I hope I'm saying that right, in the race, while Democrats are behind Dane County Judge Susan Crawford. Attorney General Josh Kaul filed a lawsuit Friday arguing that Musk's offer violates the law, said later on Saturday appealed to the state Court of Appeals after a county court judge refused earlier in the day to hear the request for an emergency injunction to block the payments. Musk plans a rally where he intends to give a pair of Wisconsin voters $1 million each for signing an online petition against activist judges, he says. He is also offering $100 to anyone who signs it. He's previously gave $1 million to a Green Bay man who signed. Musk and the groups he funds have poured more than $20 million into the race, while Democrats, including George Soros, back Crawford. The race will determine ideological control of the court. Liberals currently hold a 4-3 majority, but a retirement this year puts the majority in play. The election concludes on Tuesday. Wisconsin's Attorney General argued that Musk's promised payments violates state law, making it a felony to give voters anything of value in exchange for them voting. Musk's Political Action Committee used a nearly identical tactic before the presidential election last year, offering $1 million a day to voters in Wisconsin and 6 other battleground states who signed a petition supporting the First and Second Amendments. A judge in Pennsylvania said prosecutors failed to show the day before the effort was an illegal lottery and allowed it to continue through Election Day. Now the Wisconsin Supreme Court race comes as the court is expected to rule on abortion rights, congressional redistricting, union power, and voting rules that could affect the 2026 midterms and the 2028 presidential election. Musk initially said in a post on his social media platform that he planned on personally handing over $2 million to a pair of voters who have already cast their ballots in the race. Even though Musk's initial post was deleted, there's been no announcement that the payments will not be made. So that's where we're at, folks, in this country. And is that where we're headed, and is that what we're going to become? And I'm asking that. I'm literally asking you, the viewer, Is that where we're at now? Is it just going to simply be billionaires buying it? Well, I mean, what's the answer here? How do you contend with this, especially when courts are saying, "Yep, he can do that, no problem, no worries, he's allowed to do that." There's no world in which this is normal. So what's the answer? Do we get someone like a Mark Cuban to come up and start throwing his money around? And everybody, and we just have billionaires fighting for us? Is that the direction that we're headed in? And we can't even really, there's really no point in even addressing the die-hard MAGAs because we know where they stand. They do not care. If the last election was bought, they don't care if he buys every one of them from here on out. It will not bother them. That's what we're up against. And I've said for so long on the channel, and I still believe I'm right on this, MAGA has no new ideas. They want to take us back. They want to go backwards. They don't want to evolve. They don't want to progress. They don't want to move forward. They want to go backwards. And they will do so no matter who is leading the charge. They don't care as long as they get the results they want. And that's because these are people who this entire time have just been watching, in their minds, a reality show. They've been sitting here watching this stuff. They just want to win. They do not care if this game is rigged. And I know I make a lot of WWE references, but that's because that's exactly what it looks like. When you go to see the WWE, you know the game is rigged. And you can have your picks, you can have your favorites as to who you might like to see win. But there's a guy behind the scenes that pulls the strings. They sit down, they script it, they go out there, and they perform it. And you sit back as the viewer and you watch. And if Roman Reigns goes over CM Punk or John Cena goes over Cody Rhodes, you either cheer or you boo. But the game was rigged when you walked through the door. And you know that going in. The fans don't care, though. That's the whole kicker. The fans still show up. They still fill up stadiums to this day to watch this scripted fight. And MAGA is the same way. They just want to see their guy win. They just want to have the victory. They just want to own the libs to the point that they're perfectly okay with this happening. And I always go to this point anytime we're talking about these kind of things. Back when they gave Trump immunity for official acts, I said no one should want this on either side of the aisle because if you give one president immunity for official acts, then the next person that comes along can say, hey, I've got it too. Now, if you're the biggest MAGA Republican in the world and you're cheering that Trump has immunity for official acts, what if we was to elect a Tim Walz or we was to elect an AOC or an Andy Bashir and they said, you know what, I've got immunity, so let's just lock all these people over here up. Let's just go over here. I mean, they never stop and think it through. My thought is you never want to give anyone unchecked power because then the next person that gets unchecked power could come after you. So if you allow this billionaire to buy elections, another billionaire could pop up. And I promise you right now, if there was a billionaire popping up and buying these things, MAGA would absolutely be losing their mind. They've already got George Soros painted as the biggest boogeyman on earth. But if there was someone like a Mark Cuban, if Mark Cuban did the same exact thing and went to the same place and said the exact same thing, Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters, the youth pastor, Charlie Kirk of MAGA, Steve Bannon, they'd everyone be losing their minds. But they don't care because all they care about is winning. And we've been sitting over here talking about democracy. We've been over here calling ourselves pro-democracy. But we're watching it circle the drain. We're watching it go right down the toilet. And there's a lot of good people that's been standing up for it. There's a lot of good people that's been standing up against this madness. There's people working overtime to stand up against this madness. But how do you combat this dude and his wealth? And if you'll notice here lately, when Trump's talking, he don't even know what's going on. This go around, he's literally saying things like, I don't remember signing that. I don't know. Somebody's taking care of it. It wasn't me. I don't know. First time hearing about it. And I sit there to myself and I'm not, and this is what makes this so difficult for me is because I catch myself when I'm talking to my friends, I catch myself starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist myself. I catch myself saying, well, okay, did they just buy this thing and then, they just eventually pull out the 25th Amendment when they're done with him? Do they just throw him in the garbage when they're done? I've always talked about him kicking people to the curb. Is there going to come the moment when they kick him to the curb and then we're stuck with J.D. Vance for the rest of our lives? And I'm not trying to sound hyperbolic or conspiracy theorist, but when you see shit like this, you can't help but wonder. And then when you see fellow Americans just sit back and clap, you say to yourself, was no one paying attention? So it just becomes a thing that will get harder and harder to combat as we go forward. We can sit here and we can encourage people to vote all day long, and we can all go to the polls and we can all vote. But if we got the richest dude in the world there handing out $1 million checks and is allowed to do it, is allowed to get away with it, I'm just asking questions out loud. How do we ever get around that? I know what the other side's saying. They're flexing. They're happy because right now it's their guy. But is that what we've become? We're just going to sit back and watch them buy it. We're just going to sit back and watch the WWE. We're just going to have a race that's the winner's determined before we start. Is that where we're headed? I'm just asking questions at this point, because this is truly one of the most bizarre things I've ever lived through in my life. I never thought we'd be here when I was a kid growing up. Always been interested in politics, always been interested in government and U.S. history and how things works. I never thought we would ever be here. But I do appreciate your all's support here on the channel. We're cruising toward 1 million subscribers. We're closing in now on 700,000. That's pretty hard for me to believe. I put that silver plaque on the wall last April when I hit 100,000. And so we've had a lot of growth here on the channel, and I truly appreciate all of you. All I am is a guy sitting here trying to figure it out. I don't claim to have all the answers. I barely made it out of one of the poorest high schools in southeast Kentucky. I passed by the skin of my teeth. I think they passed me just to get me out of their face, so I just go on and play music and leave them alone. So I'm not an expert on any of these things. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not an attorney. I'm none of those things. I'm just a hillbilly that used to play in cover bands and wrote songs about the crazy world that he lived in, and then one day plopped down in a chair and began talking to y'all. So I'm just trying to make sense of it. But I appreciate y'all for coming along for the ride, and it doesn't cost anything to hit the subscribe button. So help us get to 1 million. Get on these conversations if you want to. Sometimes the comment sections can be toxic. So I always say to people, if you need to unplug. I won't be offended. I never want to be up here, just constantly pushing stuff like that. But if you do like what I do, the button is there. And I do have a Patreon. You can check out the stuff we're doing. I did a video on this new tattoo I got. It's still in the healing process, and damn, I can't even twist my arm to show it to you. This one hurt. This is my 14th one. And damn, if it had been my first, it might have been my last. But I hope everyone has a great day. And I always say let's keep putting in the work. But I don't know how we're going to do it if we're up against the world's richest dude just throwing his money around.